The Last Starfighter is one of those movies that's always been on my watch list since I've always kind of heard about it, and when Arrow Video released it, I decided to pick it up, and from there it kind of just sat dormant on my shelves until now. The film is about Alex, played by Lance Guest, a teenager wanting to leave the small trailer park he grew up in. At this small trailer park there is a Starfighter arcade machine that Alex plays a lot, and when one night Alex gets the high score, he's picked up by Centauri, played by Robert Preston, who takes him to a space station where he learns that the game is actually like a King Arthur sword in the stone kind of thing.
About to be killed. Killed. Oh, get you. Oh, get you. Oh, get you. You don't seriously think it's dangerous, do you? Oh, don't be silly. Oh, get you.
Alex is like, nah man, I want to go home, and after returning home he's like, oh man, I want to do it, returning to find that he is the last Starfighter. The film is fine, it's okay, it's just one of those films that's like right down the middle. It's a pretty generic space hero movie, the characters aren't really complex. Alex gets the most development, but outside of being good at video games and wanting to make more of his life, you don't really get much more than that. Same goes for his girlfriend, love interest, who I already forgot the name of. The other characters are here to just push the exposition along. The villains, or villain, is easily the most underdeveloped, as they maybe get like 2 minutes of screen time. You don't really get to know like their motivation or their story or just really much about them at all, just that they're the bad guys, you know what I mean? And I guess one of them is related to one of the good guys. Without establishing the villains, they don't really feel like much of a threat, which is underwhelming for the few action set pieces we actually get. The war itself isn't really developed. You basically get an arcade machine intro to the war and that's it. And the CG, oh boy, the CG. The CG in this movie lives in a special kind of place in hell. It's so goofy looking when it first appears on the screen. It's really jarring, like what the f is that? And honestly, you never get used to it. It's bad, but it's not like the Flash bad. It's just flat out animation. I don't even know how to describe it because I've rarely seen CG like this without being in the context of something like, you know, Roger Rabbit or video game kind of thing. Performance-wise, the film is fine.
You get your chance. Important thing is when it comes, you gotta grab it with both hands and hold on tight.
The main cast is definitely serviceable. Some of the side characters are more questionable.
You gotta grab it with both hands.
The music is pretty generic 80s score, and that's kind of where the film exists. It just kind of exists as a generic 80s sci-fi film. The film feels like it stumbles to find its footing at the beginning, and I was pretty bored, but I did find myself enjoying it more towards the final act. Funny enough, the scenes with Beta I found to be more enjoyable than most of the real Alex. Beta just worked for me as a comedy relief character, which is surprising because like 1000% of the time those characters just annoy the ever-loving shit out of me, but here I was like, no, this is actually probably the most interesting part of the story. Still, I'm kind of just sitting with this movie basically saying I'm glad I finally watched it, but outside of that CG, it's not going to stick with me and I don't really care to watch it again. I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10, probably closer to a 4.5 than a 5.5, but a 5 out of 10. Finally checked it out, and yeah, this has been a slow start for 31 for 31.